au quotidien. Tu sais,小才，
And it wasn't until after the fall that I realized that I had been speaking to the maelstrom since I was a child. So I was a little better prepared when it descended on humanity. After the fall, when people started hearing things and seeing things and things started happening, they had no idea what was going on. People started going crazy.
My name is Jackford. I am a very slight, very small figure. A person with a very tired face, but very precise hands. Like, I always know what to sort of do with them, where to, use them. They're always sort of doing something, playing with something, but they're always very precise.
Okay, hello, bonjour. People around here, they just call me Nuts. I don't know why. Crack, 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 you see? Their hands are just these massive knuckles and like scarred. I don't know why I get here. Everyone is, who is that? I don't know. Call them Nuts. So I'm like, okay, call me Nuts. I don't care. What do I do around here? I fix it. You need your car fixed? I fix it. You need your radio fixed? I fix it.
So, before everything went to shit, then I was a street preacher. So basically just like grinding it out, doing whatever it took to make it through the next day. But just this full fervent belief in, I don't even remember anymore, but whatever religion it was at the time. My name is Rhyme, and basically my appearance is very imposing, and that sort of gets me people's attention.
Bring Jackbird their weekly grocery deliveries in my armored truck. His name is Gilbert. But Gilbert's gone now.
Oh no.
Taken by the bandits. I was able to call in to the Enclave to let Jackbird know I was coming on the way. Had my phone stuck in my pocket and got a holy book from a religion long forgotten in my knapsack. Hey folks, welcome to Two-Bite Tabletop with BowtiesNBugbear and the wonderful cast of Post-Apocalyptic Queers. We've got Kat, also known as K Meza. We've got Cyle Durkee. We've got Disco Pete Schwab. And we've got Saint Stella for our second session of Dream Askew. If you didn't watch the first one, that's okay. Just make sure you pay attention to the credits for this one, and all shall be revealed. I just want to make a quick note that on last week's episode, I may have used they, them pronouns to refer to Avery Alder, the author of Dream Askew. Avery Alder uses she, her pronouns, and that is my housekeeping. So, we're basically at the point where we start playing, we start creating scenes. What we're going to do is we have a Roll20 screen up, and I'm going to participate in the Roll20 screen and then fill in our Enclave worksheet down here. The way this works is we choose as a group these 3 to 5 visuals, 3 things that are in conflict in the Conclave, and over on our Roll20 screen, which wasn't playing happily with my window capture last time, we're going to be drawing a map, and I will just put that in to the edit as we talk through it. I'll make some title cards of the map for your enjoyment. But we're going to go work into this Roll20 screen, and the next step to do is choose 3 visuals to describe the Enclave. What are some things that jump out to you all on this?
Ooh. Let's see. Well, so my first question would be, how far into this is there still like a functional society nearby? Has everything been destroyed?
Yeah, so it seems to suggest that, we can sort of play around with these ideas. There is this term, the society intact, that the game uses. So it does seem that there's something, is some sort of a large or at least medium-sized actual society that we are on the fringes of. So there's something.
Sure. Now, my real question then is this people hanging on to an old society, or has all of society collapsed and this is a new, like they built up something new?
Yeah, like I was playing Mutant Year Zero on the weekend. Kat, thanks for joining me. And I was like, could it be an arcology? Was one thing I was thinking. Like, are you familiar with the term arcology?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
could it be an
arc kind of thing, or
sort of. It's basically the idea of like almost a bell jar. So like a biodome almost, where people who can afford to live in it, and any gases from the outside do not permeate. It's self-sustaining. It's got an ecosystem within it, and generally it's rich people who can afford to live in them. The other thing I had thought about, and this was I've just finished the first book in the 3 Body Problem series, and there's like a group of people who have been receiving information back from an alien society, and they're like the protected chosen ones of this alien society when the aliens come to Earth. Like, could there be aliens in our game? And like, that's something I thought about as well. Like,
but along those lines, sort of, because when we talked about the idea of the maelstrom being kind of like a manifestation of all this angst, but you could also kind of see like a group of people, like some people in opposition to this angst, but some people sort of making peace with it or even exploiting it, or you know what I mean? Like maybe there's some people who figured out how to profit from or even communicate with the maelstrom and like have some kind of exchange. I don't know where that sort of puts.
That might be something we want to play when we get into it, because someone is going to play as a psychic maelstrom, right? So
sure, right.
We might want to save that. But so
I like, in terms of the specific like visuals, I like the idea of an abandoned complex, and I'm thinking something like a campus.
Yeah.
Like
that's
campus.
good.
Yeah. Like
really
I spent the summer at the Université de Montréal. It's like up on a hill.
Yep.
And there is, student housing. There's like a whole buildings where there is lecture halls. It feels like the sort of thing that people could sort of, not that specifically maybe, but like a university campus.
Yeah.
Okay. I love it. I think mutant plants would be great, but only around the science building where they're trying to create
a botany area. Yeah.
Yeah, and that slowly will invade the rest, and the area around it will start blooming with plants that are just different than all of the rest because of attempts to generate some uh, some uh, some biologically more viable or quicker growing or something like that.
Yeah,
You
and that
know,
sort of goes into like what I said last week, where I suggested maybe the plants got really brightly colored so drag queens could.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Camouflage.
and I wanted that one as well. I mean,
That's good.
I think
yeah,
that would
I
be
really wanted that
glorious.
one.
Yes.
And even if it's like I was thinking out in the wilderness, but even if that's like a booby trap for any people who are trying to attack the enclave.
Did you say boobies?
Like
I did.
Oh my
natural
god.
This time actually while recording too.
talent.
I think also, uh, I I love the idea the of the campus and the sort of vastly different things that could be created
Mhm.
in the campus. I would love if there was like a fabulous marketplace in the middle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was attracted to the bustling
agree.
market too. I
Yeah,
feel
Like
I'm
the
looking for
Yeah.
that.
quad,
Both Stitcher and Hawker, that's almost like integral to what we're doing.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
would one
I
of you
think also
mind
just-
highlighting that on the Roll20 and I'll do it on the PDF?
I think just the sense of community too.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
it has to be kind of built around that kind of thing.
Where is? Oh, there we go.
Mhm.
It's up at the top. Yeah,
Here we
I
go.
like
I got
that.
it.
Awesome. Yeah,
I think I'm
and I actually the font I used for the 2-Bite Tabletop logo is actually called Chelsea Market, and I did that specifically because I was like
Nice.
Chelsea, New York, right? Like it would be funny if it was called Chelsea Market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could talk about that.
Ah,
Are we now rage like we talked about the Bacnels? Are we gonna have raging parties?
Yeah, of course.
I
do-
well,
I
we
do-
Or are
talked
we
about
just
how
going
that
to
was.
assume
So
they're
I
there?
want to
Yeah,
revisit
well, we
that though
talked about
because when I picked that one out of the options, that I was kind of thinking more like Bacchus, like a lot of drinking and kind of
Okay.
wild parties. But everyone seemed to jump right to orgies, so I don't know if it like.
no, because so very specifically
I don't mind.
been a
I mean,
long
it's
year and a
not
half.
what it is,
Bacchanal.
but
Well,
I
no,
hear
no.
you,
So
I
there's
hear
a
you.
historical precedent. There is an
Sure,
there's
okay.
an actual term, a bacchanal, and it specifically was the women who worshipped Bacchus would drink, 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 tear off their clothes,
That's
run
not
into the
historical.
forest, start acting like wild animals, and they would then, like go and hunt down animals with their bare hands and tear them
Okay.
apart and then
Wow,
eat them
all right.
raw. And it's actually how Oedipus died, not Oedipus. Oh God, what's his name? The son of Dream, Orpheus.
yeah.
It's how Orpheus died.
Okay.
So that's why I jumped to that, because
Okay.
that's an actual term, and I realized that it has changed over the last 2,000 years to mean something
A little bit.
else.
Anyway, but yeah, wild party sounds good too.
Okay. So raging part. Do we want to keep that, or do we just want to assume that they happen?
They happen for sure, but what about raging parties, but also shrines?
Yeah.
What if we
Okay.
have like
Yeah.
both are true? All things can be true at once.
Yeah, I'm
Do you-
just sort of.
And there had been some discussion last week of the parties happening like in the back of the temple type thing.
Ooh,
Mhm.
yeah.
How it was like it wasn't just out in public. There was like sort of a velvet rope situation.
Mhm.
It's like when you go to New York and you go to the like speakeasies and you like it's like a coffee shop, but in the back you're like you say the password and you go back and there's like a bunch of burlesque. Did
Yeah.
it, danced in the bathtub, don't worry about it. But like it happens.
As one does.
One does.
How could you not?
Bathtub gin, baby, look it up. New York. I don't know if it still happens.
No, I'm 100% down with that. There's yeah. And
Is that
I'm wondering
5?
if that doesn't create some conflict.
Yeah.
Is
I think that's good. Yeah.
I don't know why. I just pictured like a Sunday service, and like as part of the church announcements, be like, and please no more sex on the altar during the parties. We'd like to remind everyone that this is a space for holy. Thank you.
Yeah, that's true.
Sex in the back, please.
Please put
Is
your
that
sex
okay
Well,
with
in
everyone?
the
it
designated
very well
sex
could be.
areas, please.
Well, so at that point, then, since it says shrines plural, I think maybe
Oh yeah.
you're not the only religion there.
Not the
That
only
there
one in
is,
town.
you know, if your thing is, you know, the parties and the sort of like, you know, the escapism of those parties or the connection to the divine of the parties,
Mhm.
it could very well be that there's another shrine, you know, on the other side of campus that is like a fertility cult, you know, or something like that, where sex is that sacred moment.
Sorry, I didn't mute myself in Discord, just on my audio pickup on OBS. Why? There we go. All right. Yeah, I like the idea of different shrines. It was actually fun. And you'll see when if I can send you all the opening stuff that I created, but when I looked at some of the title, like I used some stock photos and I looked up stuff like market, and it's all just like very interesting. Some of the photography I found, some of it was like overly orientalist, and I automatically just like pulled that out, but like there were some really interesting things when I just sort of ideated for words to search for things like psychic. Actually, that was the easiest one because I found like plenty of tea ceremony and like tarot reading pictures, but then like for the torch, I found like Jesus saves and all this stuff, like on like crumbling billboards and that sort of thing that were kind of cool. That was neat.
Awesome. I did like the
Well,
images that you
I mean, the thing that I'm also really curious about is, where is this place located? What country? You know, because if we're in, you know, like the middle of farmland America, that's going to be vastly different than if we're in like just out of New York City type thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, here's a question though. How far have the seas risen?
How far into the what?
How far have the seas risen?
all the way. We're on a
Well,
boat.
Because like,
well, again, that depends on how far into this we are.
yeah, like here's the question: have people started moving into the middle?
This center,
You know, like Manitoba here, we're expecting plenty of eco refugees showing up eventually.
Yeah. Same with like Ontario.
Yeah.
Not Toronto, but like it's gonna take fucking decades and decades and decades for the sea to get to like middle of Ontario. Like it's not gonna happen. So, or you know, I don't know, Nebraska. I guess. Like,
I'm trying to think,
what?
Because I'm picturing some like I went to Trent for my grad school, and like it uses that like futuristic brutalist architecture. It's got like this bridge, but it's like very like 1970s glass and concrete. Like that's sort of what I'm picturing.
Well, so the one other thing to really consider when it comes to climate refugees, like where things are happening, is not just that the seas are rising, but there's going to be a lack of water. So everyone's going to move to the mountains because that's where the ice pack is.
That's true.
That's where actual water, fresh water
Did we establish that as climate refugees? I mean, like we can talk about that, but we didn't.
No, we're just saying
Sorry, we're just
saying if it's like how far into the future are we going? Right. So is that potentially going to limit us where we are on the globe, or we can just like say like we're not going to worry about that and we can.
My preference is that we don't go so far into the future that we have this technology that we in the real life don't understand.
Absolutely.
That like it's within, I don't know, 20, 30 years of now.
Okay, yeah.
So,
yeah, that sounds good.
Whatever technology exists sort of exists, so we understand that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like,
that's good. I like that.
I also feel like a lot of us kind of based our backstories on somehow all existing pre-apocalypse,
Yeah.
so it probably
Yeah,
would
but-
make sense if we didn't go any further than like 30 years, 40 years maybe.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
Yeah,
how do we
I
know
would
we're not
say-
all 300 years old? That's,
I mean, you're right.
You know.
Maybe the psychic maelstrom does something like
It's
that.
odd.
I mean,
I'm a literal witch. I'm 400 years old, so y'all do
Thank
what you
God.
want to do. But
Yeah. Thank
Oh,
God I'm
that's
not the
good.
oldest one here. Yeah.
But like that, but it would be interesting to throw it into the Midwest because, like, you could throw some really interesting. Like, you do have. I mean, we could go, as far west as Colorado, where you've got the mountains, but you've also we've got a desert here. I mean, it's technically not a real desert; it's a savanna, but like we've got desert.
Oh,
right
Colorado,
over.
we have actual desert.
Yeah, so
and
that's the
we've got
thing is
plains, and we've got mountains.
like Midwest, you
So-
could get like a lot of different landscapes.
hmm
I'm totally down with being in the foothills or something like that, because that would give us access to lakes, rivers, mountains,
Yeah.
however we wanted to build it out.
Yeah.
what's the closest university to there? Or
Well,
college?
there's a lot. So probably if you
Is
were
there
doing
one that's like on a hill
Or
and
one that's
somewhat,
got
like, has
brutalist
a,
architecture.
like a
There's-
defensive
there's
thing?
or
Like-
one that has mutant
so
plants.
there's
Any working
Right.
mutant plants that we know of.
there are
Non-marijuana
currently-
related, maybe marijuana related.
I can think of at least 3 different universities that are on the side of a mountain. There's one in Gunnison, there's one in Grand Junction, there's one in Boulder.
Well, I just looked up universities in Colorado and Google image searched it.
Yeah,
There
Boulder
are some good
Boulder
ones.
is right next to the Flatirons.
Right.
Gunnison is high in it's actually one of the coldest places, so I wouldn't suggest
Maybe not
there.
that. No.
No.
I would say, you know what would probably be the best one and the most sort of iconic would be the Mesa State. It's in Grand Junction, it's in southern Colorado. It's on a giant mesa that's like 50 miles across.
Oh,
But
that's
when you're
amazing.
driving towards it, you can actually see the sides of the mesa rising up. There's the Green
Okay.
River right
Yeah.
next to it. Then you're like
That's been decided.
it's like 2 hours from Arches. It's 2 hours from Uray and Telluride, which are just stunningly beautiful mountain areas.
But now
there's-
taken over by the fucking apocalypse. So here we are on this
Yeah.
mesa.
Yeah.
I'm sad
this
at
is
how much
the-
red brick it's got, but we can figure that out.
There's look up Uray, Ouray, which is where I grew up. It's fucking gorgeous.
Ouray?
Ouray, Colorado.
Holy shit, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's literally built into the side of a mountain.
that's
There's 2 waterfalls. I had a waterfall, literally a 200-foot waterfall 4 blocks from my house.
Okay, so
Wow.
and it also like the mesa, like the walls of the mesa, it also makes it a really good spot for this whole idea of a community being protected, right? Like you would think that like the community that's pushing out various other communities is going to want a protected area like that.
Yeah.
That was cool. All right, so the Enclave worksheet, I've got abandoned complex, bustling market, shrines, mutant plants, and raging parties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Mhm.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
In
So
Colorado.
In Colorado.
Totally makes sense to me.
So
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
someone want to write that
A lot
down?
of weed. There are a lot of weed farms.
Okay, so
I just-
Wait, let's talk about this. Do we literally have sentient weed plants?
We don't have to, but it would make me
I
so
don't
happy.
know. Do you, I mean,
I think it's a good tangent, but I think we're going
You
to
wanna-
leave mutants. I mean, we
yeah,
have
I feel
mutant
like
plants.
maybe.
I feel like it makes it a little woo-woo, a little
Yeah.
more than we
I
want to
think
do.
I think
Yeah.
that's like
Go ahead. If everyone wants to do it, go ahead.
I think I'm good on that. I think I'm good.
No,
on
that's
that.
fine. I will leave it
Okay.
in order to help move along
Yeah.
the community.
Now,
it's
but I-
gonna be totally live in my head canon though. They're just gonna be in
Yeah.
the background walking
Right.
by.
They're definitely
every
there.
once in a while.
we're just not going to
I'm not
discuss
gonna-
them.
I'm not going to die on that hill.
So I'm taking mutants out of things that are in conflict because we're
Okay.
just not going to have conflict with them.
Sure.
I
I'd
think
like to
barriers to
offer-
access are definitely a thing
Okay.
with like the different cults
Yeah,
and things.
yeah. Because like if you think about it, if like the cults are based around like bacchanals and stuff, like there's dancing, that's just like there's all sorts of stuff there, right? Like that could be
Mhm.
you know body culture, that could be lack of access for people with disabilities, that sort of thing. If it's like if there's dancing involved, right?
Yeah,
I like psychic
but
privacy
also
too.
yeah, that's going to be a big one for my character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna grab that psychic privacy. It's the first one.
I'd like to offer scarcity thinking. I think that like a lot of things that we're doing is like the immediacy of food, shelter, water, and that makes people like sort of more violent, more like intense than they need to be, and maybe there is less scarcity than everybody thinks.
Mhm.
And a lot of people maybe like not, they're like, it's okay, like we actually have enough food in here, like we're okay, and everyone's like, no, we don't, we have to go out there and attack everybody. And I feel like that might be like a sort of like issue that everyone's like, no, we need more for ourselves,
Yeah.
just like now. And maybe that like dichotomy of like, wow, like I've come where the queer community 30 years ago before this happened always existed in scarcity, but now we have this place where we're actually okay for a minute, but all these queer people believe that they're in scarcity because they always have been, and maybe that like dichotomy is a problem, that people think things are more scarce than they are, and that causes conflict. Just a I know.
Where do you think Jackbird lands on that, Cat? Like that seems like
I was
rife with
thinking about that
opportunity in
because
a way. Yeah.
yeah, because I feel like a lot of what they or what Zer would be thinking about is like this kind of idea of like how can I sort of almost market off of that.
Sure.
You know, because a lot of like what I provide people is like that luxury food that maybe they can't find all the time.
Yeah.
And like playing into that sort of scarcity idea of like, yes, you should come to me because like it's getting rough out there. We're not able to find everything. Yeah.
Now,
Not that I really would, you know.
One thing that I'm looking at is like there is scarcity thinking there, but what if it's like if we're talking about like this is a group that is used to not having, but now we have, this is a minute where we've got stuff. Like what if it's the past trauma? Like I've kind of like soft penciled in trauma on the other worksheet here.
Yeah.
I think it's going to really depend. That's going to be super specific to the individual and based on your backstory. You know, like Kat's character might be trying to amplify the scarcity thinking in order to increase their profits, right?
Yeah.
There is like for Eventide, they've just always been, you know, like because they've always been highly intuitive, they've never really had to even think about scarcity. Because if they wanted something, they would just go like sort of follow their heart and go talk to this person who would then offer them the thing that they wanted. You know, that they never really, and that's sort of still the world that they live in now that they're actively being protected by the psychic maelstrom.
Yeah.
You know, so even if there is massive scarcity out there, like they always sort of have what they need, but they're not greedy, like they don't hoard anything. So it's a subsistence living, but it's just always there. They never have to worry about it.
Okay.
You know.
So is it something that's in conflict, like scarcity thinking in the Enclave?
I think it definitely would, because like just like Kat's character and my character would be in absolute conflict.
Right.
Over just the thought of
good. Okay.
You know?
I get what you're saying. Yeah. That makes sense.
And I think Knots would be somewhere in the middle, being like, look, we have enough. The fact, I think that like knots would be like, we're okay. Like, stop thinking about scarcity as a problem, and we can do so much better.
Yeah.
So I think there's all these layers of that conflict, which is interesting to me.
Yeah, actually,
well,
that's really good.
And I feel like my character too would be sort of coming in from the angle of scarcity thinking as an opportunity for charity, you know, and so like maybe also in conflict with, I mean, I guess with all those different points of view
So,
in
like,
a way, right?
when you say
like,
charity,
Yeah.
like you would like give away.
Well,
like,
and I think the idea is trying to get people to help each other, you know, and try and use it as an opportunity for community building, and maybe even seeing in a lot of ways, like even people saying like there's not scarcity. Well, that kind of threatens that opportunity. If you say there's not scarcity, it's like, well, this is we need there to be scarcity so that people will help each other, so that we'll come together as a community. Or seeing people
We
exploiting
need to hear
scarcity,
from religion.
you know.
oh, that's
I don't know.
good. I like it.
That's kind of how I would see Rhymes' take on the whole thing.
Oh,
Like,
that's good.
not that they consciously want there to be scarcity, but that there's like a vested interest, and that there's more opportunity in a space where people are afraid of scarcity, but then they sort of justify that thinking by thinking like, oh well, you know, we can use this as an opportunity to build the community. Yeah.
You're a monster.
No, that's
So yeah, so that's cool. So we've got psychic privacy, scarcity thinking, and barriers to access. I think that's interesting. I think they're going to play out in interesting ways. And so the way these then work is, as we go through playing, we can bring those in as if we need something to create conflict within a scene. That's a way of causing trouble, right? There. All right.
Oh, what?
And we'll go. All right. So we've come up with our enclave. We've got abandoned complex, which is likely a university. It's in Colorado. It's somewhere near Ouray.
It's in Grand Junction. It's called Mesa State
Mesa,
University.
it's in the location of Mesa State University. I personally am envisioning a lot more concrete than there is at Mesa State, but that's where it is. It's got shrines because people are coming from all over the place. There's a lot of different cultures coming together, as well as different like New Age religions and mysticism, as well as the New Age the mysticism that's been brought about by the psychic maelstrom. We've got mutant plants blooming out of the agriculture area, and there are drag queens waiting to pounce on any intruders. And people work hard so they can party harder at the raging parties in the evening. And in this enclave, we have, at odds, we have psychic privacy, we have scarcity thinking. Some people are worried about the scarcity, some people are trying to encourage it. And there's this barrier to access of how can people get access to the various different belief systems and ways of practicing beliefs there. And this is our enclave. We now the next part as we get into scenes is we just have to go, and I don't have this in the Roll20 game. We're just going to read these out, and do you have your playbooks open?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I scrolled too far. So now we just have to choose which setting elements we play. So you'll see it says you also play the varied scarcities. The way these work is we just read the top thing, and as we read through, we're going to circle the desires. We work as a group to do this, but one person will play this more than others. And then there will be, because there's 5 of us, there will be a 6th left on the table, but these can be picked up or passed around at any time as well. So you might be the person who represents the varied scarcities, but if you need something material and you don't immediately know where to get it, you would trade it away and someone else would play the varied scarcities. You have moves. There's no strong, weak, or normal moves. They're just moves. And these are things that can happen if someone is bringing in that particular setting element. So I'll start by reading the varied scarcities, and then we'll move Kat, Kyle, Pete, Stella. So you also play the varied scarcities. There's no postal service, no municipal waste treatment, no reservoir operations, no reservoir operations manager to treat your water, no ecological impact survey team, no police, no road maintenance crew, and that means no refrigerated trucks hauling groceries into the area, no signal in the cell towers most days. The people who used to think about this stuff so you didn't have to, they're gone now. So what this does is whoever plays this can introduce NPCs like scavengers, hustlers, growers. So maybe there's, issues with our mutant plants, bandits, and you can make them sympathetic as well. You explore what happens to everyday infrastructure that no longer exists, and ask compelling questions and build on the answers that others give.
So is this a situation where, like, if someone's playing varied scarcities and someone else is like, well, we go hunting for food, that varied scarcities is the one that dictates whether or not they find it, type thing?
Yes, there's just a second. So Society Intact also does that, I believe, because that's wandering out. Or is there something else? Outlying gangs. So that might also be where you're wandering into the wasteland.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but then like scarcity, varied scarcities could say, like, could they start a scene with like people are starting to get sick and you don't know why, and it turns out that it's like the water source.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm interested in this in that it's in the direct opposition to the Stitcher. So I don't know if I should be this or somebody else should be, because I feel like the Stitcher is trying to put things together, and these scarcity people, like, scavengers, hustlers, bandits, are trying to pull things apart. So I feel like maybe somebody, like, we don't have to decide this now, but I feel like that this is in direct opposition to what I'm trying to do as a Stitcher.
Right. So I mean, and the thing is like, do you want to play, like, for example, one that's like obvious is, does the Iris play the Psychic Maelstrom, or does the Iris not play? But it seems that, I don't know, I would think that the Iris would probably play the Psychic Maelstrom. The varied scarcities, I would put it, the Hawker or the Stitcher would be a good choice, where you're sort of the one responsible for getting things to people as it is anyway. You aren't going to have to, like, you're more likely going to be the one who's going to know where you're getting stuff from, right? So
I personally think that I should not play the Psychic Maelstrom, because honestly, that puts way too much power in my hands.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
In addition, it says pick up when someone uses a psychic gift.
Yeah.
And I'm the one most likely to use a psychic gift.
That's true.
So then and if you all don't mind, that's fine. I will literally just play the scene by myself.
No, that's true. That's very true.
That's exactly why I feel like I shouldn't play varied scarcity.
Okay. Am
I right to
the direct opposition to what I'm doing?
Sorry, Kat?
Right. No, am I right to assume, though, that the way that we play these is then when whatever a scene pops up that, like, someone decides to do something, that's when someone else picks it up?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not, like, just a given. It's just, like, whenever, like, someone just decides to just jump in.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
That isn't the person that's starting the scene.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Cool.
if you're not, I feel like it's like there's one person that is the first choice for that card
Right.
whenever and then if
Yeah.
they're already in the scene, somebody else grabs it.
Yeah, and we're like, you
Absolutely,
are
yeah.
supposed to choose this. Yeah, you are supposed to choose it, and then that's the
Mhm.
trade away. So yeah,
Because I think I would like to do Digital Realm because
Okay.
it's completely opposite of Iris.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so do we want to read through them before we choose?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So as we go through, though, we have to circle 2 desires. So what is the setting element of very scarcity is wanting? Is it wanting competition? Is it wanting paranoia? Is it
If,
wanting...
as I feel, this is direct competition to Knots, it is definitely paranoia, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Knots is always out here trying to be like, chill, we are okay. Everybody has what they need, we are okay. I think
yeah.
that's their
Then
big
I would say paranoia is is like a short-term goal. I feel like a feral age would be a long-term goal for scarcity. Like I feel like if it were like a force of nature, its ultimate goal would be a feral age where there is scarcity and that creates its power. That it gains its power by creating
Oh,
scarcity.
interesting.
And then, that there should be sort of a short-term motivation and a long-term motivation for each of the
Okay, yeah.
each of these
I mean,
things.
and I'm not sure if that's the way, like, because it could be that these things play also in opposition to one another, right? So it could be like
Mhm.
in a given scene, what like it could be paranoia, or it could be a feral age. Like I wonder if because we're also talking about like scrappy DIY in terms of the Stitcher, uncomfortable bargains in terms of the hawker. Like, do we want to think about those as well?
Well,
rather
then
than
in that situation, I'd go paranoia and collaboration. If you want the
okay, yeah,
opposite,
like opposition. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it depends what we're doing with these things. Is like, are these things like a part of this community? Or are these things like hated things? I don't know.
It's supposed to be like I think it's a bit of both, right? Like,
Yeah.
right, like you can get stuff from the wilderness, but the wilderness is also a scary place, right? So you can have these things, and I think you want it to like the desires to somewhat match up with the stuff we've already talked about, right? So we've talked about like the Stitcher being like a little bit scrappy
starting
DIY.
to think in character, this is like Stitcher being like, we're fine, we're okay. Don't like lose your shit, that we are okay. And right away. Maybe there's more. I haven't read the rest, but this feels like direct. Like Stitcher is like, we will fix. We are okay. And this, whichever way you choose.
Like
but,
I would say like scrappy DIY, because I feel like we don't want them to be necessarily completely in opposition. I want them to somewhat match up with the way we've talked about the Enclave and our characters as well.
Yeah.
And just in terms of the practical application, are these desires like when someone picks up, say, varied scarcities, then these are sort of the guidelines for how they're supposed to be playing the character of varied
that
scarcities?
Element,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I like it because that's a like I think of everything in terms of story, and it's like paranoia can lead to DIY. That can be the sort of positive result.
That's true,
of the paranoia.
because it's like, okay, I gotta rely on myself. That's interesting.
Like necessity is the mother of invention type thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, Kat, do you want to pick up the Psychic Maelstrom?
Sure.
Careful
though.
You also play the Psychic Maelstrom. Close your eyes, open your brain. Something is wrong with the world. That something is the Psychic Maelstrom, just beyond our everyday perception, ever present and howling. It can offer guidance, protection, even flashes of brilliant inspiration, but it's hungry, and nobody knows what will satisfy its appetite.
All right. So now we want to circle 2 desires. So there's human dependence,
The one that really sticks out to me is to be ushered into the world forever.
Ooh.
That there is an actual desire. This thing is trying to get something into the world. You know?
Yeah. I was kind of thinking about like my character's relationship to it, and I think he kind of sees it as like this opportunity to like he sees it as a manifestation of all that's terrible about humanity, and this is our opportunity to like beat it back into the darkness and turn our backs on like what's terrible about us forever. So like I kind of like the idea that it somehow desires like being ushered into the world forever. Like I don't know.
Oh no, I love it. I love that idea that there's two of us who are like absolutely on opposite sides of the conversation about the psychic maelstrom. I'm like, no, it's great. It's delightful.
Hey. Yeah, so I've got to be ushered into the world forever. I like that because it goes into some of the stuff, if we're talking about it being potentially like a ghost in the machine for thinking about technology as well. It goes with like the William Gibson stuff where it's all about paradigm shifts. I love that. What's the other desire? Did you guys talk about another desire while I was realizing shit was going down?
I like entropy though. We didn't talk about it, but I just like the
look at revenge, bitch.
Okay. I can't argue with that.
I am
here. That's the whole point of this. You should argue with.
I know.
I feel like if we throw revenge in there, in my brain, the paradigm that suddenly pops into existence is that because the person who's playing the religious one is trying to turn their back, that makes the history of religion the fight against the psychic maelstrom, in the history of humanity. Like, I think that would be amazing.
Oh, God.
That
would be amazing.
Let me offer you a yes and. Yes. And there's a whole bunch of queers here. And we spent our whole life with people telling us we were fucked, we were bad. And now we have this place on a motherfucking hill, on a motherfucking mesa, and people are trying to get in here.
It's literally a shining city on a hill.
Yeah, and we're like, oh, you want to get in here? And you told me I didn't deserve anything because what? I had relationships with men and women, and they thems, and die in a fire. And that, to me, is also problematic, right? Like, that's a bad thing. And we need to wrestle with that. Like, that's not good, right? Like, I look at TikToks where queers are like, kill all the straights. And I'm like, but really?
Wow.
There's and there is, that comes in one of the, oh no, that's way up in the Enclave worksheet where one of the things is, where is it? Need for purity is one of the things in the Enclave worksheet. So that's like very much part of it. But we could have it differently as part of the psychic maelstrom.
So if an ally comes to the literal doors and is like, I'm going to die out there. People hate me because I'm okay with anybody loving anybody. I don't know, a man, and I'm only attracted to women. Do we throw them out to the wolves? Maybe we do, and that's a revenge problem. That's an offer. I'm just saying.
How does that tie into the psychic maelstrom?
I mean, to me, I'm suggesting that revenge could be an interesting thing. Is like, as queers, we're getting revenge on these people who we thought threw us out in life.
Well, I think where it could tie into the psychic maelstrom is that if this is a psychic force, it could essentially like sort of pick up on whatever's happening, and everything is just amplified. Because the psychic maelstrom is now released. It's no longer being held in check by whatever was holding it in check before. And so if revenge is a thing for you, it will amplify those concepts. It could be why there is so much, like conflict about scarcity is like, if you're paranoid about it, it's amplified. If you're cool about it, that's amplified. That it's not a specific motivation. It is just an amplification of what's going on. But because of the trauma of queer society in general, that revenge is sort of something that lives in the maelstrom in this area.
Okay.
Could it also be something that like almost also like feeds it in a way? Like this idea we talked a bit about, like one of the other desires being like to be ushered into the world forever. What if that's something that helps it further itself into like just like everyday life, into that sort of thing? I don't know.
So
that might be something to think about as well.
Yeah, I like that.
So revenge being something that helps it.
Almost, yeah. I guess.
Well, that's interesting too.
I mean, I
Kyle,
feel like
you mentioned Eventide created like a weird eater before, like that.
Yeah,
sounds kind of similar, like a revenge eater, or like.
Well, it's a weird eater. In my mind, the weird eater, it was a gift that was given to someone who was not, like trigger warning here, but who was probably someone who had some sexual predilections that weren't great. And the weird eater actually eats those so that they can exist in a society, without damaging the people around them. Sort of like that the eater, it eats the thing that makes you
But
harmful.
are we saying like the psychic maelstrom is kind of the opposite of that, where rather than taking it away, it sort of amplifies that or encourages it in a way?
I think the psychic maelstrom, the thing that I would be most comfortable with, is if it's just as a force of nature, it is not attempting to amplify the good or the bad. It is simply amplifying. And so it's not up to it what you are doing. Mainly because I don't want us to get into the space where you can blame the psychic maelstrom because you did something terrible. That it is about...
Why were you looking at me when you said that?
Because, Pete, we all know. All right? I'm not going to say exactly what happened, but you know what you did. And I will throw wine on you.
Again.
Oh, no.
Every lunch. Wine throwing.
I can take it.
I'm interested sort of in the fact of the inverse, right? That, like, I don't know, queers roll into a straight space and they, I don't know, kill them. But in this space, straights roll in, and because our brains are saying, we hate the straights, kill them, the psychic maelstrom is like, oh, we hate the straights, kill them. And then maybe there is some straights. I'm trying to help you out here. Roll with me here. That everyone's like, it's fucking fine. Like, what we lived off was like, who you love, you love. And we've created this sort of like space where it's like, let's kill everyone that's not queer. And that's also a fucking problem, right?
Yeah.
Like,
is that
like, I was going to ask, like, is that the way every character feels? Like,
I know certainly Eventide doesn't. I think Eventide's sort of general demeanor is very relaxed about almost everything, because their existence, I imagine if they lived most of their social life in like nightclubs and things, a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking, probably boundaries for everybody were a little looser.
Yeah.
So their experience of straight culture probably isn't quite as straight as everyone else's who might have been dealing with it in the daytime. Does that make sense, or am I being crazy?
Yeah.
I think Knots is a huge fucking queer. and in their real life was shit upon. But they're like, oh, look, it feels like we're in this place where we're like inversing that, and that's not okay either. Like, I think they're having.
So Knots doesn't want exclusivity. They don't want.
No.
They don't want
Like,
gatekeeping.
they're literally like love is love, as much as like the queers around them are like, that's not enough, that's not militant enough. Like, we are, I think, in our real life with our like fellow queers, a lot of people are like, love is love's not enough, you need to like fuck the straights and like whatever. But it's like, no, like, the world is dying. Whoever wants to come in here and be cool, we need to be okay with them. And I think Knox is like, fuck y'all. Like,
Well,
and
so
they're having a tough time.
And I thought
If
that
we
was sort of
wanna-
the way I was envisioning it as well.
if you want revenge to still be in there, then it could be the dual sides of revenge. Both
Exactly. Yeah.
amplifying the revenge and trying to get over the trauma.
Yeah.
Trying,
Okay. Could that even be like a cosmic revelation rather than just like the one thing? Could it be like a cosmic revelation that there's two sides to revenge? Or do we want to leave it as revenge?
Cosmic revelation would make my job as the Iris so much easier. but I don't. I'm trying to. I gave mine. I'm trying not to give the second one too, because I definitely want input from everyone else, because this is the thing that I'm closest to. So I'm not sure if I would make the
Or
best.
here's the other thing: is I clicked the wrong thing on it. Like, there's also human dependence here, and like if we're talking about it amplifying whatever the humans are feeling, could human dependence be that?
I feel like it could. I feel like there's just a million things that we could do.
Yeah,
and we could probably make a
I feel like revenge is like, I think we want, like, I don't know.
I am here for it.
Queer revenge, being like,
Yeah.
fuck the straights, kill them. They're not allowed here. Let them die.
But so what I would do
Let
is
us like wrestle with that. That's a problem.
I'm
in
almost
itself,
wondering
right?
if we want it. Yeah. So, and there's they talk about this a bit in one of the examples. I won't read through it in the actual like the core rules. But like what you're talking about is exactly like the need for purity in the Enclave worksheet, not necessarily just in one spot. So I'm wondering if it needs to be like, so we could take out scarce. We likes the idea of scarcity thinking, though. So like, but like like you could have a really good triangle between barriers to access, need for purity, because need for purity would be a barrier to access, and then the scarcity thinking of like everyone can be involved, but like we only have enough for so, like some people saying everyone can be in here, and some people saying, well, like there's only, and I'm putting my hands out like this, like some people saying, well, there's not enough for everyone, sort of thing. And so maybe we could then move psychic privacy.
I think, so personally, I think that we can really sort of like parse it out when we're actually playing the game instead of trying to write the whole story right this moment.
Yeah. I'm just, I think I want, like, I'm gonna have some, I'm gonna put 3 things where it says to go with 2.
I mean, I will say, because I'm having a tough day, as sort of like a passing straight, like as somebody who's only dated men, because women don't see me, or they thems don't see me as queer. I have a really hard time passing into that space, and sometimes I feel like very pushed out of that space. And that feels really fucking bad to me. That feels so bad. And I kind of want to address that as a queer space, as like some fat person being like, oh, you don't belong here.
Then
Look at your like curled hair. Fuck you. And I kind of want to be somebody who approaches this and be like, oh, can I get in? And everyone's like, no, because you look this way. you're clearly not queer. Fuck you.
Yeah, so
'Cause
that would
I've
be, I mean,
literally
that would
been
be the
there.
much more larger thing of need for purity, I think, in
Yeah.
the Enclave
Mhm.
worksheet. Like, I think we
Yeah.
definitely want
Mhm.
that if that's something that you think you want to touch on in this game.
I really do, and I'm sorry for making that like
No,
such a
that's
big deal.
okay, because I think it could come, into play in more ways if we're talking about there being different
Mhm.
religious beliefs and stuff, right?
Mhm.
Oh,
that-
absolutely. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah, for
just
sure.
just to touch on that very briefly, it also happens within the gay community. Like there's a whole I am excluded from so many things in the gay community because I'm not at the gym every day.
Mhm.
You know,
Yes.
Mhm.
like it's
Yep.
just
Yeah.
it's a whole thing. The gatekeeping thing
Yeah.
in the gay
Mhm.
community, in the queer community in general, I
Mhm.
think is a significant problem, and so I would have no issue
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
kind of
playing
want
with
to,
that.
I really want to address that because same, I'm not
That'd
like
be
a
great.
thin
Yeah.
mask lesbian. So would I be even accepted? Probably not. And I'd
Mhm.
love to talk about that and be like, I don't know, my wife is fucking dying in my car. I'm sorry that I'm fat and have tits. I'm queer. Can I please come in with my wife?
Mhm.
Like, that's very important to me to play out. Not
Yeah.
that I actually have a wife, but you know what I mean. In theory,
Yeah. Yeah.
in theory,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry that I'm fat and have tits, but I'd still like to be acknowledged as a queer person. Like,
Mhm.
you know. Wow, that got deep. I'm sorry, I'm having a bad day.
That's okay. Let me know afterwards if you want me to
So
like edit anything out or whatever.
Yeah.
Like if Yeah.
weirdly enough, I feel like you're amongst some supportive humans that get it.
Yep. Absolutely. Oh
So
God.
yeah, you're good.
Thanks.
I won't tell you that you're good. I'll say I'm good with this conversation.
Yeah.
Also, sorry. Let's get back to game.
No, that's okay. Like
This
this
is
is
all
part of the game, right? Like
Yeah.
it's definitely a weird way of playing because like none of us have ever met in person. But
I mean, I've haunted your dreams, I know.
it's true. It's true. So yeah, so I think we've got our two desires here. We've got human dependence
Fabulous.
and I've actually done 3 just in case, but I think we want to leave. I think we'll move revenge up to the gatekeeping thing and the need for purity, and we'll use human dependence, and that's where like it amplifies human feelings,
hmm
and then to be ushered into the world, and that's like this idea, and like I like it. If like I'm thinking specifically of William Gibson's Idoru, where there's like a holographic version of this Japanese like the virtual newscasters, and it all of a sudden comes into the world through like this like
Can I
bunch of things put together. And I'm not
can
saying
I
that's what happens.
offer
It's a visual that comes to my mind.
can I offer a little bit of world building that I just
Yeah.
sort of stumbled upon in my weird brain? That the psychic maelstrom has been there all the time, always amplifying human emotion. And what we are seeing right now in our society is the effect of the maelstrom amplifying everything that's happening. And this is what leads to the end of the world.
Are we
Is the
talking? Are we
fact that
talking like our society that we're living in right now?
yeah,
that we're
no,
just
I'm
bitching
saying very
about?
specifically
Yeah,
that
yeah.
like it
I
could
believe
be
it.
this. This is the thing that's happening, and
Yeah.
because people never learned to deal with their trauma, the
Mhm.
trauma is just laid bare inside them constantly, and they keep trying to run away from it, which constantly amplifies what's going on internally and is just leading people literally to insanity. You know, that's what happens. And it's not the psychic maelstrom's fault. It just amplifies things. It's always been there. We've always been able to process things through a diverse group of people. And as we became more and more separate and we became more and more siloed, it kept amplifying things, and then we amplified it, and then it amplified it, and eventually it's just society breaks. We no
Mhm.
longer can actually function anymore, and it breaks in a million different ways in a million different places, and then it's just done, and there's no way to come back from it, which leads to the apocalypse, where there are some bits over here and there's some bits over here, and this happened over here, and there's a wasteland over here, but this area is fabulous and full of rich people in their biodome. Like there's
Yeah.
it allows for literally anything that you want to explore in the game
Yeah.
without having to bring in very specific things about climate change
Yeah.
that are difficult to deal with.
Oh God. Yeah. I don't think we're gonna get to scenes again this week.
You know what? Honestly,
But
I
think
feel like that's okay. I feel like we are
we're doing the work.
we are
Yeah.
doing the work to set up our society, and
Yeah.
we are going to be next week. We are going to be ready to jump in
Yeah.
and do
Yep.
some real shit. Like just this conversation, I have fleshed out the concept of Eventide so much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like literally, I've now decided that Eventide is the epitome of privilege, not because they have money or things like that, and not privilege in a traditional sense, but the universe just provides
Mhm.
for Eventide. Like I have this image of her standing underneath this gorgeous giant thing, this mutated plant, and just sort of dancing a little and realizing that they're hungry. And then suddenly just a fruit from the plant just falls in their hand
Oh my
and just
God.
eats
Like,
it.
just
And that's
never knowing
they
why
live.
kind of
Like
thing.
in the club,
Yeah.
it would be like, oh, I need some dinner. And then the next person to sit down at their table would be like, hey, I don't have a lot of money. And they would just be like, oh, well, just buy me dinner. And it just the universe is always provided. They don't understand. Because of that, they live in a world apart.
Kind of bubble.
And so, yeah, even the apocalypse didn't really affect them that much. They weren't aware of the world changing that much, the way that it affected everybody else. I think that would be in a post-apocalyptic world, to have someone like that. I think for me, it's such an interesting concept in this situation. Privilege in society is, we've all seen it, we all know it, and sure, it can be fun to tell a story about that. But privilege in like non-aggressive, non-selfish privilege, just an ignorance of the suffering that other people have. I think that's an interesting thing to move through.
Mm.
Anyway, so I think this has been very useful,
Yeah.
at least for me.
Good. Yeah, I agree. And yeah, okay, so we've got through 2 out of the 6 setting elements. So I think we should definitely finish the setting elements. I'm hoping I think the first 2 were definitely the earth itself might be a little bit contentious as well. Or not contentious, but like it might bring up emotions.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle, do you want to read Society Intact? Just
Maybe.
the italicized stuff.
You also play the society. For some reason, we thought the collapse was going to hit everybody at the same time. But nothing happens like that. Neatly, evenly. Civilization crumbles in waves, eroding the peripheries of good society. Apocalypse is only a distant nightmare for the privileged, a cautionary tale about what might happen to them if they should fall from the master's arms. You'd be surprised what one of those people would do to keep their society intact.
Yeah, so this is the in-group to our out-group. The desires that are listed here are orthodoxy, ignorance of outsiders, profit eternal, self-preservation, a technological solution, hope renewed. And so, yeah, This describes environments and people that feel, or some of the tips here are describe environments and people that feel at once familiar and alien. Make decisions about what you can still buy in conventional markets. Ask compelling questions and build on the answers that others give. And
I feel like Stitcher would be a little bit like aligned to a technological solution. They're out there like doing the radio, building shit, making shit happen.
I was going to say that too. I like the technological solution. I would love it if the technological solution was a solution for that small society, for like whatever is the intact society, but they cannot keep up with the repairs, or they no longer know how to build the next step.
Ooh,
or something like that.
That's good. Like that's good world building. I'm thinking, technological solution, but it's not working, is something we could play with, right?
Or slowly failing, or something.
Yeah. And
ignorance. I feel like ignorance of outsiders. Yeah.
Okay, Jinx. Yeah.
Stephen.
Because that's sort of like it plays into they're not evil. They just don't get it, right? Like.
I feel like we've talked about that a lot tonight too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be fabulous. And then Stitcher, Stitcher and Hawker both might be familiar with these societies for different reasons.
Absolutely.
But then they have the choice of gatekeeping or not if they want.
And Tahani, the arrival would potentially like be that like a go-between as well, right? Because I'm new to the Enclave. I may have just shown up at the first scene, right? We talked about that last time.
Yeah, but
so
why'd you leave? Would be my question.
Yeah, right. And it may be that I sort of go between them, and like maybe this is not the only Enclave, right? Like maybe I go between different Enclaves as well.
Spreading your filthy ideas.
So this one is somewhat straightforward, right? So it's you pick this up when someone wanders into society intact, or if they pay a visit, and you trade it away when you need to deal with the society, or they find you. And so moves are introduce an authority figure, announce future threats, or offer an opportunity with or without a cost. So yeah, society intact, pretty straightforward. Pete, take us to the digital realm.
All right. Everything we'd ever known or said was embedded somewhere inside it. Even though the digital realm was young, it was hard to remember back to the way life was without it. It seemed as permanent as it was pervasive. Apocalypse pulled the digital realm to pieces. Networks fell into disconnect. Satellites blinked out. Computers were ripped apart and stripped of their precious metal content. But humans are wily and resourceful. They know how to salvage, repurpose, and rebuild. Maybe the digital realm still has a future? Question mark?
That's an interesting period there. I like it with a question mark too. So the desires include expanded networks, shared knowledge, escapism, trafficked secrets, fresh code, to reinvent the world in its image. Ooh.
I love that as a completely opposing force to the psychic maelstrom.
Yeah. I agree.
Shared knowledge. I have a literal fucking radio broadcast.
And here's the question: like, that's a pretty could the psychic maelstrom and the digital realm fucking have a new baby, right? Like, that's something that could happen, right? Like,
is it something where the two, like the internet was an extension of the psychic maelstrom in some real way, and that it was electrical in nature?
I kind of see them as parents that need to get a divorce, really. Like
they've got a toxic relationship.
They just don't know it yet, but they're still together for the kids, but they probably.
Right. I just have this image when it comes to digital. I just have this image of like a single like iPad that somebody like as the world was falling apart,
God.
somebody downloaded like the entire contents of the Library of Congress onto it and have
on a
just
thumb drive. It's just on a thumb drive connected to nothing. It's
Yeah.
just
it's just all the knowledge of the human race on this
Yeah.
one thing as the internet fell apart.
Yeah, so I've
Yeah.
highlighted shared knowledge here. I don't know, like shared
Mhm.
knowledge and to
Yeah.
reinvent the world, right? So like it's
Even
like this
even like
proliferation.
shared knowledge. Sorry.
No, go
I
on.
was just thinking, like, even shared knowledge is like this sort of like people being able to still, tell stories amongst one another to tell what life was like, 20, 30 years ago,
Yeah.
would be such an interesting thing to play with as well, on top of like downloading the Library of Congress and keeping it
Yeah.
for safeguarding. So
But also,
geez.
as we may or may not be experiencing now, there's also shared ignorance. Like
yeah, that too.
it's just I don't
But
know.
I'm like, yeah, but then, so then it's like, are the desires shared knowledge and escapism? But I kind of like the idea of it's this one iPad that has everything, but all of a sudden the iPad like starts like not growing, but somehow becomes like more like it sort of all of a sudden starts repairing itself. Like maybe it's got a scratch screen at the start, and then all of a sudden it's repaired, and then it like.
Well,
it's like maybe it's like an old generation iPad and it starts like changing and then it starts proliferating, like literally procreating.
Well, I mean, also too, like with the themes of gatekeeping and stuff like that, if it's got its own, if it's got its own desires and its own prerogatives, then it could very well be that it starts actually gatekeeping the information. Like, how do you build a watermill, and how do you grow crops effectively, and things like that. Information that the vast majority of the human race no longer has access to.
And I like
And
that, like, yeah, now we're starting about like thinking about like rebirth and stuff. I love this.
yeah, I like that, and then just the idea that all of these forces, like society as a force, digital realm as a force, psychic maelstrom as a force, and they all have sort of their own mission and desires
Absolutely.
that move things forward. Because at that point, then it's much easier to create conflict in the story, because you could be going against the desires of something that is a force that you don't have real control over. And what do you do then? Do you destroy the iPad? Do you, figure out a code? Do you design a code? Just state your design, learn to code and design a code so that they can get the information that they need. Like,
I
what
have the
does that
strong
look
move
like?
of like expose or not expose, reveal a skill that no one knew I had or whatever, right? Like,
I love it.
yeah, like, and I also like the idea of like playing into this idea of like when you think about like queerness and being like expanding the idea of queerness, it's like the idea of straightness is very much like sex is for procreation only, right? And now we're playing with this idea of like other forms of procreation that kind of fuck with the idea of procreation.
Is that what we're living for, though? That's so sad, says not Stella, but also Stella.
I feel like we're good on digital realm.
Yeah.
Shared knowledge and to reinvent the world in its own image.
Yeah, not Stella. Will you play? Will you read for us the outlying gangs?
People had wildly differing ideas about what the collapse of law and order meant for their future. Some shuffled to mortal coil and at the first sign of real danger. Others took to the hills, equipped with water purifiers and dried goji berries. But some people stayed right where they were, armed and alert, ready to carve out an empire by whatever means necessary. Stop whatever you're doing. Crane your neck just a tiny bit. You can probably hear the roaring in the distance.
Ooh.
Oh my. I knew I saw
Um,
mutant blood in here somewhere, and I couldn't find it when I reread it right before the last stream. There we go. Mutant blood is one of the desires.
I'm so sorry. I have to correct the text. The actual saying is shuffle off the mortal coil.
Where's
Sorry, it says shuffled the mortal coil. It's shuffled off the mortal coil.
Oh yeah, it looks like it's a typo.
It does. Yeah. It just made me sorry. It made me a little crazy.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, so we've got this is the outlying gangs. I don't know. We're kind of like we're already talking about a lot of stuff between society and intact and the enclave. So this might be one
I
where
feel
we
like
kind of
territory
yeah,
is going to be really
I
important
agree.
there.
I like Splendor just as kind of a weird one, like a wild
Yeah.
card.
I was thinking that as well, like sort of like they're like really into like gold.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Well,
I mean, it could be that like splendor
Or
means peacocking and that like they have a tendency to like actively try to like go out and like kill drag queens to
Mhm.
steal their
steal their
clothes.
outfits.
Oh my god.
Like that's a power that the drag queens have in the society is they have all the
Mhm.
fabulous clothes,
Mhm.
and people are, and it's an active
Oh
sort of
god.
it's like a social cachet if
Mhm.
you can actually get one. It's one of the reasons that now the drag
Oh
queens are the
god.
guards. They've had to train themselves in martial arts and weapons and things like
Oh, that's
that
so
to keep
good.
themselves safe.
Effective camo.
Ammo,
Oh my god.
motherfuckers.
Oh geez, I love this.
And we call them bio queens because they are of no determinate gender.
Or we
Any
could
gender
just call
would
them
be-
queens, right? Because bio queens.
The queens,
Yeah.
the queen's guard at the fucking.
Oh my god.
Oh,
Yeah, we're just gonna call them
I love
queens
it.
guards. Oh
I'm
jeez.
done. I live
yay!
here now. I live here now.
Right? I'm already starting to like
Yeah.
design their weaponry in my head. And it's all like fabulous, like razor sharp fans and like boas that are actually whips. And just
Yeah.
Every time I think of this, it makes me think back to that the final show in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, where they do CC Peniston's finally, and like they actually like take up like the like they're instead of just doing drag as drag queens, they do like the world around them. Like one gets dressed as the Sydney Opera House, one does the like
Mhm.
crazy lizard that does this. Like it's super. It makes me think of that every time I think of this sort of stuff.
I wonder in this place, and we can talk about this later. But is there any joy in gender play anymore, or does it matter? Right? Is there any rebellion left in that? I'd love to talk about that. Like, we're now in a queer enclave. Okay, I guess you were like, I don't know, AMAV or whatever, and now do we care anymore? And does that hold any power?
I feel
Or
like
does it
I feel
hold
like
power?
unless it's been at least 2 generations since
Yeah.
the fall, that it would absolutely still hold power. That there
Yeah.
would still be
Great.
concepts from the old world, you
Right.
know.
Maybe it's like a way of just like kind of holding on to that past as well,
Yeah.
keeping that tradition alive as long as you can.
Mm.
And then, but okay, and I'll throw this out. I was hoping that this place would be a place where gender doesn't matter. But if it
Right.
still is like these people are like, oh, I was born with X gender and now I'm X gender. So those things still matter. Okay.
I think to some extent at least, yeah. Or at least there's some
Yeah.
holding on to it, right? Like people
Some
of these things
vestige. Yeah.
like people even like regardless what community they're part of, a lot of people still have trouble giving up that concept of gender, right? Like, I think it's not something that would be lost that easily.
Okay. I think that's a huge part of this, and I think we need to like consider that, whether as ourselves as characters or as a world, we're
Right.
like, okay,
Mhm.
we are not post-gender in this world.
Yeah.
We
Well,
are.
I feel like the queer enclave would probably be closer to post-gender
Mhm.
Right.
than the outlying gangs would be.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
You never are if you grew up right
Yeah.
that way. If somebody told you you were this gender and you had to do this, no matter even if you arrived there at like 16, you're not post-gender yet, right?
Yeah.
So I think that it's interesting if we decide that maybe we're 50 years from where we are now and we have fully explored that gender is not biological, but it's explorative. I don't know how we want to talk about that,
Yeah.
but like, okay, but a lot of these people are arriving, a lot of these people in this enclave, what does that mean? And I think that's like interesting, and that changes what we're doing if like people roll in and we don't care what their gender is, or people roll in and we're like, oh fuck, you grew up this way, but you understand that you are this. Those things are very different. I think it's interesting to decide what sort of age we are lying in, right?
Yeah.
Well, and
Mhm.
I think the important part again is going to be it's totally different per character.
Mhm.
You know, like
Right.
I think for me, like for my character, it's never mattered.
Sure.
It's just not anything that they've ever really thought about. You know, again, living in that sort of privileged mindset where people just come and go.
Yeah.
And I think a part of it too for Eventide is just the fact that they have a tendency to look at the emotional content of a person, and they a lot of times will just forget what the outside looks like.
Mm.
You know, like I feel like Eventide doesn't really identify people by face or body. They identify them by I remember that trauma. Oh, yeah, no,
God.
that's I remember
Okay.
that.
Okay.
But I'm absolutely not saying that for everyone. I'm just like I'm thinking about it and I'm like, if we're really jumping into character and seeing what's going on, I think that Eventide's whole world revolves around the ability to see inside people.
Mhm.
And so the outside of people is it's not just that they don't see it, it's actively confusing for them.
Mhm.
You know, when someone shows up and it's like, don't you remember? And it's like, I don't were you where I think you were like the priestess and the chariot, I think were your cards. You know, like I can't
Right. So
well,
are
so we
we ready?
got through one. So we got
Yeah, I'm
territory
so for
Are we ready
extending
to move
that
on to
whole
the Earth
thing.
itself?
Yep.
Oh,
and
did we only
splendor.
choose? Oh, yeah, territory and splendor. Are we ready to move on to Earth itself?
Yeah, I think
I
so.
think so.
All right,
Yeah.
so I'll go for this one. We built a new world upon its back, glass and steel stacked towards the heavens. We learned how to pull electricity out of every natural element, to mechanize, to automate. Some of us went whole days forgetting anything existed outside of our edifice. We wounded the earth. We alienated ourselves from its touch and its harmonies. We broke holes in the sky. When it tried to warn us, we didn't listen. What now? Will apocalypse cement that alienation for all eternity, or finally bring us home? Oh, jeez.
That's the question, isn't it?
I feel like this is like gonna leave us in tears, this last one, but yeah, we'll be okay.
Yourself, I'm fine. I have zero mental health problems. Don't worry about
I
it.
know. I'm good. I definitely like the idea of reciprocity
Oh yeah. Yeah,
in
me
that
too.
if
Do
you
you?
if you put goodness into the earth will give you its bounty and its goodness. If you put toxins into the earth, it will poison you. It will
Okay.
destroy you. You
I
know.
hate that.
You what?
I hate that.
Okay. All right.
Some of us don't have the capacity to put good things in all the time, right? Like we are struggling. We are just doing our best, and what we're putting in might be shit. We might be putting shit in there
Yep.
right now.
Oh.
And that's bad, maybe, but like to expect reciprocity is to expect like shit back at you.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying it's a good choice. I'm just saying it's a good choice, but it might go back on people who are struggling and are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I had to make this choice today.
Yeah.
It's not a good choice for the world." But I
Well,
had to make the choice.
ooh, what
Well,
if it
and
works into the
also-
whole like the shrines and religion and stuff, and it's like, what are they doing like offerings to the earth, right? What if it works
Well,
into that?
And
Well,
are
the-
they always good? Ooh, I don't know.
That's
Well,
that's
I
what
think-
I'm saying.
I think the thing that you also have to look at with the Earth itself is the difference between a human time frame and a geological time frame.
Yeah.
And that even if you're putting good things into the Earth, the reciprocity might not come in your lifetime. Or it might not
Mhm.
come, if you put bad things into the Earth. I mean, just look, people in the 1800s started throwing a lot of coal and carbon dioxide, and it's taken many generations for us to get to the
Yeah.
point where
Yeah,
now
let's
we're
put some
reaping.
bullshit to blame them. We are fucking
Oh, yeah.
100, 500
Yeah.
times more than them. Please don't blame those poor people in the
Oh
like
no, those goddamn Victorians.
digging the yams. Let them be. Let them fucking be. But anyways, yes.
So yeah, I think that's another thing to play with. Is just timescales that don't
Yeah.
necessarily make sense to
That's cool.
us
Yeah,
little
yeah.
people.
And what about
Um,
strange new forms? Like if we're talking about mutant plants, I mean, we don't have to always come back to it, but I somehow feel like to be reborn in fire is like that.
I'm not
Scary.
super into that one. Just because I don't think it really fits in with like the
No.
story that we've been creating so
I feel
far.
like Strange New Forms or Eden Renewed would make sense. Maybe
I like
trampling on.
Eden Renewed a lot.
Yeah.
Well, and then the fight becomes, what does Eden actually look like?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because to some it would be all a bunch of straight white people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You
Look,
know?
Adam and Eventide, not Adam and
Yeah.
Steventide. Okay.
Oh
That's
God, that's
right.
so good. Fuck. That is so good. God damn. I said god damn.
I will take it. I will take that title. Like this.
So have we chosen reciprocity?
Eventide the progenitor.
Have we chosen reciprocity and Eden Renewed?
I'm into it.
That
Okay.
works for me.
Yeah.
Look, and no one cried.
And no one
I
cried.
feel like-
So
feel like we're good.
folks, thank you for joining us tonight on Two-Bite Tabletop. It has been a wild ride this week. And thank you for joining us. All right. Anyone have anything they want to say before we count out? I can always add it if you are like, hey, can you put a message in the credits? I can always do that.
I feel like this game is going to get deeply weird and fabulous. So,
Well, you're
Fingers
weird, you're gonna
crossed.
need some food, right? Oh, geez. Anyone else?
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was terrifying and beautiful. All right. All right.
As it
Have a
should
good
be.
night, folks. Yeah. Thanks for joining us.